Late into the night, a message appeared. "Sweetheart, we need to discuss the trip. We've decided to push it to the following year." I stared at the screen, my heart heavy. Postponed? Months of planning for what was supposed to be our inaugural family vacation and years felt wasted. I had shifted my work hours, scrimped for every dollar, and counted down the days like a child anticipating Christmas. I immediately dialed my mom, who answered with a sigh. "Alyssa, I realize you're upset, but finances are tight. We just can't make it happen." Holding back my disappointment, I acknowledged the money troubles. I genuinely did, even took extra shifts at the cafe to contribute to the trip, even offering to pay for my own ticket. But the tone of inevitability, as though it was a fait accompli, as though my feelings were inconsequential, stung like a slap. I voiced a suggestion. "If it's a matter of cost, perhaps we could opt for a less expensive hotel or shorten our stay." She hesitated briefly before her gentle refusal. "Alyssa, it's just not the right moment. Next year for sure, I promise." How naive I was to believe. 2 days later, during a lunch break Facebook scroll, a picture mobilized me. Mom and Dad graced a beach with sun-kissed skin and drinks in hand, ocean shimmering behind them under the afternoon sun. My heart pounded as I took in the scene. My brother Jake with his girlfriend on a boat, my parents savoring lobster at a seaside restaurant, smiling. Then the caption that chilled me to the core: "Family time is priceless." Family time sans me because they had postponed the trip. I froze at the cafe counter, turreted with racing thoughts. I yearned for a rationale, a sudden work opportunity, an unexpected gift, but deep down, I grasped the reality they hadn't shifted plans. They simply determined my absence was irrelevant. I refrained from calling my mom or replying to the posts. Instead, I watched as more snapshots surfaced over days: snorkeling excursions, beach bonfires, a tapestry of memories excluding me. Each glimpse birthed a revelation. It wasn't solely the trip. It was every instance of feeling overlooked, every forgotten birthday, each holiday marked by an unthoughtful token while Jake received precision. Every sacrifice I made for them that was never reciprocated. I resolve hardened with a deep inhale. I would not remain the overlooked sibling. Oblivious to my awareness of their digital chronicles, they returned a week later. Steeled with a plan, I awaited them. I observed from the kitchen as the taxi approached, delivering Mom, Dad, and Jake, luggage in tow, contentedly bathed from their postponed adventure. My jaw set firm, determinedly composed. Unaware of my knowledge, the door opened, and Mom's overly cheery voice greeted me first. "Alyssa, oh sweetie, I missed you. How have things been?" Arms crossed, I responded curtly, "Busy." My dad followed, bag set aside. "That's good. How's work?" A sarcastic chuckle escaped my lips. Work was my company while pretending I was invisible to them. Jake stretched, feigning exhaustion. "Traveling wears you out." His words hissed normality. "Hope you kept everything in check while we were away." His phrasing "while we were away" echoed with mock innocence. Their betrayal replayed through my mind as reality took over. I inhaled deeply, no more camouflaging the truth. I turned to Mom, speaking with an eerie calmness. "How was the trip?" She blinked, faltering. "Oh, just a simple getaway." It was a lie. I revealed the phone, screen lit with the very album, the beach selfies, and beyond the elegant dinner, the boat excursion, and that caption, just the thought of it made my stomach churn again. Moments with family are beyond value. I tilted my head, looking at them, feeling the heavy silence envelop us. My mother's uneasy laugh broke it. "Alice, I don't." My voice cut sharp and cold through her words. "Just don't." My father cleared his throat. "Look, sweetheart, it wasn't." "Stop," I interrupted, my voice gaining intensity. "Just tell me the truth. You never postponed the trip. You simply didn't want me there." I saw a flash of guilt in my mom's eyes, soon hidden by a flimsy excuse. "It wasn't like that, honey. We just thought—" "What? That I wouldn't notice?" I snapped. "That I wouldn't see the pictures? That I'd easily swallow your lie?" Jake groaned, rolling his eyes. Oh my God, Alyssa, are you really blowing this out of proportion?" "It was just a trip. Just a trip." The words struck like a blow. I'd planned it, saved for it, and was supposed to be part of it. I shook my head. "You could have been honest, but instead, you lied, made me feel unworthy." Jake scoffed. "You're being dramatic." I let out a bitter laugh. "No, Jake, I'm finally being honest." My mom reached towards me. "Alyssa, please." I pulled away. "Not this time." They needed to hear it. This isn't just about the trip. It's every single time I felt invisible. Every holiday Jake got what he wanted while I got the leftovers. Every time I prioritized you and you barely noticed. My voice quivered as I continued. I thought if I tried hard enough, if I gave enough, maybe I'd be enough for you, but I never was. Was I? Silence answered my question. Finally, my mom sighed. Alyssa, it's not like we love Jake more than you. I managed a small bitter smile. Maybe you don't, but it sure feels that way. Another heavy silence affirmed my feelings. I nodded, exhaling sharply. Got it. Without another word, I picked up my purse and headed to the door. Alyssa, where are you going? Dad called after me. I didn't look back, somewhere I actually wanted, and I left, choosing myself for the first time. Over the following days, my phone incessantly buzzed with their messages, but I was done fixing things. This time they had to figure it out on their own. I didn't respond to calls or messages. Ignoring them felt strange initially, guilt whispering like an old habit. Maybe I was overreacting, maybe I should forgive. But then I'd remember the message postponing the trip, the Facebook images of their fun without me, the lies spoken so easily, and the silence felt like liberation. By the 5th day, their messages changed. At first, they were authoritative, dismissive, trying to regain control. Mom, Alyssa, we need to talk. You're blowing this out of proportion. Ignoring us changes nothing. Call your mother. Jake, Jesus, Alyssa, get over it. You're acting immature. I rolled my eyes. Classic. They weren't sorry. They just wanted their comfort back. When I didn't relent, their tone changed. Mom, sweetheart, we miss you. We never meant harm. We mishandled things. Let's discuss. Then the message that nearly broke my resolve. Mom, Alyssa, I feel terrible. I can't sleep knowing you're upset. For a fleeting moment, I almost replied. Almost. But I asked myself, if I hadn't seen the photos, would they have ever come clean? Would they feel guilty at all? The harsh answer was obvious. I locked my phone, letting the silence speak. It wasn't easy. I'd spent years as the one initiating talks, smoothing things over, excusing them. Sitting with silence, maintaining my boundary felt foreign. But as days passed, realization dawned. They didn't miss me. They missed my role in their lives, fixer, mediator, afterthought who avoided conflict. Now that I refused to fit that mold, they were lost. A week after their return, I did something entirely new. I scheduled a weekend trip all on my own. It wasn't anything excessive, just a secluded cabin up in the mountains, far removed from the hustle and bustle. I packed a bag, took my car keys, and left without notifying anyone about my destination. There was no seeking approval this time, no waiting to be included. I was finally living for myself, and it was exhilarating. Upon my return, my phone was inundated with missed calls and texts, but I didn't hurry to reply. For the first time in my life, I was prioritizing myself, and I wanted to cherish that feeling a bit longer. People were used to me ignoring them. When I remained silent longer than anticipated, they came knocking on my door. I had braced myself. I knew this moment would come the second I didn't answer their calls, ignored their texts and their guilt-induced remarks. I was aware my parents wouldn't just drop it, so when the knock came on a Saturday afternoon, I wasn't caught off guard. I set down my coffee and took a deep breath, feeling calm and ready. Opening the door, I found my mom and dad on my porch. They appeared different, neither angry nor demanding, but instead nervous. Alyssa, my mom began softly, tucking her purse under her arm. Can we come in? Leaning against the doorframe, I answered evenly. Depends. Are you here to listen or just tell me why I'm wrong for being upset? Dad sighed. We're here to talk, really talk. Observing their expressions, they weren't imposing themselves. They were asking, which was new. I stepped aside, saying, fine, come in, leading them to the living room. The thick air hung with unspoken words. My mom perched on the couch, hands folded, while my dad remained standing, as if uncertain of his place. I crossed my arms and waited. It was my mom who finally broke the silence. I don't know where to start, she confessed. The truth is a good place, I responded flatly. She flinched, and my dad exhaled deeply. We messed up, he admitted, catching me off guard. My mom looked down. Alyssa, when we said the trip was postponed, we were lying. No excuses, just honesty. My throat tightened. Why? She paused before confessing. We thought it would be easier. I felt my jaw clench. Easier for who? I pressed. For you, she whispered. I laughed bitterly. It was anything but easy for me. My dad ran a hand over his face. We didn't realize it would hurt you this much. You didn't think at all, I retorted. My mom's voice cracked. We thought you'd understand," echoing sentiments from their previous messages. "Tell me," I demanded. "If I hadn't seen those pictures, would you have ever told me?" Their silence answered me. Battling the lump in my throat, I steadied my voice. "Do you have any idea what it felt like, seeing you all have fun without including me, without even thinking of me?" Guilt gleamed in my mom's eyes. "Alyssa, we love you." I shook my head. "You don't treat those you love like that," I declared. Dad sighed, rubbing his neck. "We failed you, sweetheart. We should have been honest." I stared at them and asked, "Why are you really here? To apologize or to absolve your own guilt?" They hesitated before my mom replied both. At least that was candid. We sat in heavy silence. Finally my mom admitted, "I don't know how to fix this." Slowly exhaling, I acknowledged years spent in the shadows and realized I didn't need them to repair it, I needed them to comprehend it. Couldn't simply go back to how it was. "I don't know either," I conceded, "but I do know this. I'm not fixing it for you." Dad nodded, seemingly understanding. My mom wiped tears from her eyes. "What do we do now?" Meeting her gaze, I replied, "That's for you to decide." They thought apologies would suffice, but apologies couldn't undo years of feeling overlooked. They needed to show willingness to change. Actions spoke louder than words. After they departed, there wasn't a sense of relief. Nothing seemed resolved. Yes, they admitted fault and said sorry, but those apologies were old news. Their actions had always conveyed a different narrative, and this time it was their actions that would have to speak volumes. For the first time in my life, I didn't go out of my way to initiate contact, refraining from sending morning messages or sharing life updates. Initially, nothing changed, and I waited through days that turned into weeks, thinking that was the evidence I needed, that without my effort, there was no effort at all. On a random Tuesday in the third week, however, my mom called, and I let it go to voicemail. Then she texted, "Hey sweetheart, just thinking about you, hope you're okay." Part of me wanted to keep the distance, but another part, the part that hoped they might genuinely care, hesitated. I didn't respond immediately. The next day my dad messaged, "Miss you kid, let's get dinner sometime." Seeing his text stirred mixed emotions within me because for the first time, they were making an effort. I agreed to dinner, not because everything was resolved, but to see if their intentions were sincere. We met at a quiet restaurant, just my parents and me, and for the first time in years, they focused on me, not on Jake, not on work, not on favors they needed from me. During dinner, my mom cautiously admitted they'd been thinking about how they treated me, how they assumed my independence meant I didn't need as much attention as Jake did. I quietly listened as she said they realized that assumption was wrong. Dad nodded in agreement, and hearing those words, they acknowledged their oversight. Something shifted inside me. It wasn't a complete resolution, but a tentative step toward reconciliation. I knew words alone weren't enough. They had to show they meant it. A week later came my birthday, which I often spent with low expectations, as it never had much significance in our family compared to Jake's celebrations. I woke up hoping, albeit a small part of me, that this time it might be different. At 10 a.m. a knock on the door surprised me. My heart skipped a beat when I opened it to find my parents with a cake. My mom offered a tentative smile, wishing me a happy birthday, and for the first time, I genuinely believed them. They stayed the day, marking a simple celebratory occasion, just catching up and sharing cake. An afternoon filled more with presents than presents. There were no hurried goodbyes, no feeling of being just a duty. It was perfect because it belonged to me. For the first time in ages, it seemed like they wanted to be present, and I hadn't realized how much I required that until it transpired. They demonstrated it again a couple of weeks later. I had a significant work presentation that had made me anxious for weeks. I had casually mentioned it over dinner one night, not thinking it meant much. But on the day of the presentation, I received a message from my mom, "Thinking of you today. You're going to do great." Then one arrived from my dad, "Let us know how it goes, kiddo. Proud of you no matter what." I stared at my phone for a long while. The kind of thing hadn't happened before. I wasn't accustomed to them remembering the small details, yet here they were attempting. Moments still arose where old patterns reemerged. Mom occasionally defaulted to making excuses for Jake, and Dad struggled to articulate himself beyond a few words. But the difference was they noticed their errors and made efforts to improve, which mattered. A few months later, one evening, my mom called me without any specific reason, just to chat. During the conversation, she sighed, saying cautiously, "I know it's going to take time for you to trust us again." I swallowed. "Yeah." Pause followed, then she continued, "We're not giving up, Alyssa. You're too important to us." My throat tightened because, For the first time, I believed her. Although change didn't happen overnight, I found myself expecting them to revert to their old habits or stop trying. However, weeks turned into months, and they kept showing up. It wasn't flawless or effortless, but my existence finally felt significant for the first time. One evening, I was on my porch sipping tea when my phone buzzed. It was a simple message from Mom, not an apology or guilt trip. "Mom, thinking of you. How's your week going?" I gazed at the screen, feeling warmth settle in my chest because such a message wouldn't have existed a year ago. Then a few weeks later, I got another unexpected surprise. I had been saving for a solo trip without mentioning much to my family, primarily to avoid unwanted opinions. One night at dinner, my dad inquired, "So when's your trip?" I blinked. "You remember?" He smirked. "Of course, it's Italy, right?" My mom nodded. "We were actually talking about it the other day." "You need help with anything? Hacking? Planning?" I scrutinized them, anticipating a catch, but there was none. They weren't offering help to gain something in return. They desired to be part of my life, and that was new. The night before my flight, I received a message from Jake. Curiosity had me open it. "Jake, Mom won't say it, but she's freaking out about you traveling alone. You know how she is." I rolled my eyes. Typical. Then another message appeared. "Jake, you're doing it, huh? Living your life your way." I hesitated before responding. "Yeah, I am." After a long pause, his final message. "Jake, that's kind of badass, sis." As I disembarked the plane in Rome, the weight of the past year settled over me. Much of my life had been spent waiting for my parents to acknowledge me, to include me for a day when I wouldn't feel like an afterthought. But I was no longer waiting. I was choosing myself. I had constructed a life where I no longer pursued their approval. In doing so, they finally learned how to be present for me. A few days into my trip, sitting in a cafe, my phone buzzed with a group message. "Mom, we just saw your latest photos. Rome looks amazing. Haul us soon. We miss you." I smiled, not because I needed their validation, but because, for the first time, they genuinely meant the words. And for the first time in my life, that was enough. You shouldn't have to plead for love or struggle to be included. If those around you fail to see your worth, choose yourself. Sometimes when you stop waiting to be noticed, that's when they finally see you.